afternoon from the second age of reason. Today's topic is about your right to privacy. We have been learning in recent weeks about the huge violation of all privacy. Privacy of everyone in America and perhaps everyone in the whole planet by an agency whose initials shall remain unspelled out. And there are those who say that the leaker and the publisher should be punished, and that there is too much of this information going around and it is a threat to security. Well, what did they do before 2001? When there was criminality, it was still prosecuted, but it was simply done with footwork and elbow grease and good old-fashioned research and detectives. So I just want to go over a few items here. And so the information has come out that they are surveilling everything. And they say, well, this should not have been revealed. Well, if you look around, and for instance, you read Wired magazine, if you watch the YouTubes, if you look at certain other sources of news, and if you happen to notice all the cameras in all the intersections and the shopping malls, in your place of business, I don't think, well, anybody with eyes to see and a brain to think should have worked it out. The informants simply confirmed what we already had suspected pretty well, that everything is surveilled. And they say, well, if you have nothing to hide, what's the deal? Well, it's not a question of hiding so much as it is your right to privacy. One might say that if you have nothing to hide, you must be as shallow as paper. Or there's other things going on that you may not know about. Okay, so they are surveilling everything. They're surveilling your emails and the internet, and they're sampling all the main internet routers and all your phone calls and so-called metadata. And as has been proven when they were questioned by Congress, they just outright lied until recently. And so you'd say, well, why can't we trust the government? Well, they kind of have lost their credibility by means of these continual lies. And so the idea that they are violating everybody's privacy, and that was supposed to be a secret, that secret does not imply consent. In which case, I say I withdraw my consent. I withdraw it. I do not consent to it. And I think we will be demanding it in the next election. I hope we will. A lot of the first First Amendments and the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, those are protections against tyranny. You have freedom of speech in the press, which is how we learned about this massive surveillance thing, and of course they're saying oh no, that was illegal, that was, bad. Well, that's what it was meant for. The press is protected just for that precise reason. The freedom to assemble, the freedom to have churches and governments not interfere in each other, the freedom to be secure in your persons and possessions, which I think is the Fourth Amendment, and that's where we get our right to privacy from. They didn't say right to privacy, but they've said that in terms of being secure in your person and possession. And of course, what do you possess? Do you possess yourself? Do you possess your information about yourself? Do you possess control of that information? Because control is everything. And they are stealing the control from you. They are violating these Bill of Rights in the name of their security. So, then we move on to the Fifth Amendment, which is protection against self-incrimination. Because, whenever these tyrannies come around, they want all of these Bill of Rights defeated in some way. They don't want the press telling what the government is doing. They don't want the people to be armed. They don't want the people to freely associate. They don't want them to have privacy and be able to communicate in private and make plans. They want to get into all the communications. Now, this privacy thing goes quite further. A little bit of it ties into anonymity. But in terms of privacy, you've noticed that they've said there should be no reasonable expectation of privacy on the internet. And you've seen articles like in Wired magazine and by the other media, and you've seen the surveillance cameras everywhere. Well, what the leakers have told us about surveillance really isn't such a big secret. Anyone with eyes to see and a brain to think should have worked it out. And now that we have confirmation of this, I think we need to take some action towards it to say, listen, it has to stop. They have to go back to using the old-fashioned way of apprehending criminals. And let's take for example telephones. Every telephone now is assigned to somebody, has a number. I would not be surprised if the government were to give anybody a free phone, because it helps the surveillance state. And you may have also noticed the anonymous phones, the pay phones that used to be on all these street corners around the city, have vanished. They don't want you to have that anonymity or privacy anymore. So that is something to bear in mind. And I'm going to tell you the other thing, where, okay, we're mixing a few things here. Self-incrimination. This is where they also want to be able to take DNA samples from everyone. They want to have a biometric thing and have a national ID card. This way, everybody can be inventoried and warehoused and have more information for the database on everybody. Once they have some biometric information, DNA information from you, and they have all this access to communications for everything, they could make anybody guilty of anything. Think about that. So this is something we might not want to have. That's part of like the Fifth Amendment. These things are all defeating the Bill of Rights Amendment. Now, the other one that's coming, that they haven't mentioned yet, but it will be coming soon, will be the abolition of cash money. Cash. Because that is another form of anonymous money that can't be tracked or taxed as well. So they'll just say they want to stop illicit purchases, they want to find illicit people, and they can find them if they are tied to a cashless society using a biometric, an RFID, a special card or something, but they don't want you to have anonymous cash. And that, I think, is the next step. This is the point. We're at the tipping point. We have to stop now, have the government stop now, or else the tyranny will set in. Whenever they go after those Bill of Rights things, I mean, they haven't said religion yet, but they will eventually too. They clamp down on the press. They clamp down on keeping and bearing arms. They clamp down on your associations. They clamp down on your privacy. They clamp down on your identity, and they control all the information. You have the recipe for tyranny. It's here. It's right around the corner. If we don't stop it now, you won't stop it. So I thought I would give you some information about how I put the pieces together, and you may rate and comment below, and until later, we'll be seeing you. And here's another postscript for your information. The agency has come forward and said and enumerated the events that they were able to prevent. And I thought that was interesting because the operative word is prevent. This is funny for 2 or 3 different reasons. Number one reason is the events never happened because they were prevented. So it's kind of a weird situation, because I could say things too about preventing things. I prevented the moon from falling into the ocean. I prevented fish from drowning by teaching them how to breathe water. Anyway, we can say we prevent all kinds of things because those kinds of things then never happen. And that's hard to prove. The disturbing thing about that also is if they are in the mode of prevention, preventive arrest, preventive detention, preventive prosecution, this is not exactly what I would call jurisprudence, not exactly what I would call due process, because they've made laws and things because you might do a crime, or we'll say that you will do a crime at some point in the future. That is a dangerous place to be in. And I think we want to perhaps look at those situations as well and evaluate what the criteria are for prosecution of things that might happen and that were prevented from happening, supposedly. So that's just a postscript to my other video about what's been happening with the massive surveillance state. Be seeing you.